I can't imagine you went to school or college or wherever and said, hey, one day I want to be king of the podcast.
When I started this 15 years ago, no one knew what a podcast was, what a download was. It's really transformed into a multi-billion-dollar industry in short order.
How did you have the foresight to even touch this category 15 years ago?
I knew in my mind that radio and really TV consumption and traditional media was going to go away. Everything was going on demand at the time. If there's more people like me, this is a real business. What I recognized is if I could get brands to understand that their return on investment because of that connection would be tremendous. They had to write us a check for like $35,000, $40,000 because the conversions were so good.
It's crazy that you had the foresight.
The podcast world has exploded. YouTube has become the number one consumption platform and discovery platform for podcasts.
AI is among us now.
AI is tremendous. It blows me away every time I use it. I think there's tremendous financial opportunities with the amount of content, video and audio that we have as a company. And that could change everything on the revenue side of things.
Good morning and welcome to the podcast. So this is a little bit of an ironic opportunity for all of us because the guest today is in the podcast industry, one of the leaders per se. So having him on my podcast is pretty cool, I will say. The story that you're going to hear today is a great one, and it's from a publicly traded company called PodcastOne. Those of you who are keeping an eye on the symbol, it's going to be PODC, and I'm super excited to have the founder, Kit Gray, joining us today. Kit, thanks so much for taking the time.
All right. Seth, thanks for having me today. Pleasure to be here.
It was super cool because, very often we have clients at VStock and I don't always get a chance to meet them. So when I saw you at the conference the other week, I was like, wait a minute, I got to go over and say hello to that guy. So, and you were super nice. And, I want to dig in on a couple of things today. Hopefully we can provide some nuggets of data and value for our listeners. Why don't we, I want to hear about the journey, but at the onset, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about PodcastOne as it is today. Like, who are you guys? What do you do? What do you look to accomplish? Things like that.
Yeah, great. Well, again, thank you, Seth, for having me today. And it's been a pleasure working with your firm over the years, and really just nice to get to know you out in Los Angeles at the LD Microcap fonts meetings last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess. Jeez.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right?
It really does, man. It really does. But yeah, that was a really good conference. A lot of good people there, and basically, to give you guys a lowdown on what PodcastOne is, we are a full service podcasting network. And what that means is we do everything from production and we have a team of producers, editors that do video, audio production for people. We have a studio in Beverly Hills. We set up studios across the country or get access to studios across the country with our relationships for podcasts to be recorded if they're not doing things like what we're doing on Riverside today. But we basically do everything on the production side of things, the marketing side of things. So we will create your social media clips, help you with trending topics, things that are going on in the industry to help shows grow. We're on top of that. We also have the right in our 200 podcasts that we have to run promo spots. So we have this great community of podcasts, and as we introduce new projects, whether those be scripted or interview shows like we're doing today, we're able to introduce those shows to millions of podcast consumers. So there's the marketing side of things. We do talent booking where we have a team that does on and off network talent booking. So you join PodcastOne as our network, you'll make the rounds and go on like-minded shows, and vice versa. Some of those guests or hosts will come on your shows. And then we also go out to some of our competing networks that we're friends with where we do cross promotion together to basically grow the space and the shows and get the word out there about podcasts. We have a sales team of 12 people, which is basically around the country working with the brands directly and some of the top advertising agencies out there. The podcast world, as you know, has exploded. When I started this 15 years ago, no one knew what a podcast was, what a download was. There was no such thing as really iPhones. So it's really transformed into a multi-billion-dollar industry in short order. The big guys, whether you say iHeart, Spotify, XM Sirius, Amazon, those guys have gotten into the space in a big way. One of our partners is Amazon. They do all our hosting with their R19 platform. So we have a great relationship with them. It's actually a really it's a great one in the sense that it gives us a lot of financial stability. Having our shows on their platform. So basically, how it works is, our model is mostly advertising, but it's basically where you see our direct sales teams has the first priority of inventory, then Amazon's sales team, which they bundle us in with all their Prime sponsorships, TV sponsorships, everything that they have going on. And then we're tied to all these programmatic desks too, like the Trade Desk and others, where we are really just monetizing every possible impression that we can for our partners.
I have to ask him just if I can. I'm just curious because I can't imagine. I can't imagine you went to school or college or wherever and said, "Hey, one day I want to be, king of the podcast." Like, how did you get into this? And the fact that you've been doing it for 15 years is mind-boggling because, I do feel in a good way and in a bad way, and I want to touch on this later on in the conversation. It's like, everybody's mother and brother and sister and dog has their own podcast today, right? Which is a little bit, I don't know what the word is. Like, so I was like, oh, you have a podcast? Like, it used to be something meaningful, and I want to get into some of the stats. But that being said, how did you have the foresight to even touch this category 15 years ago? And just give us a little bit about the background of how you ended up where you're sitting today.
Sure. Well, my background, I came from Boston, Massachusetts, and grew up a huge Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots, Bruins fan, like most kids, from that area of the country. My dad, I played really competitive tennis, and my dad drove me around all of New England, and my mom too, both of them, but mostly my dad on the weekends. And when you're a 12 to 14, 15-year-old, having things to talk to your dad about in the car, it gets tough. But, on those like 6-hour drives to northern Vermont and so forth. But so we'd listen to a lot of sports talk radio, and it was different then. The commercials would come on, and then we would talk about the sports, right? And that was just a big passion of mine. And I also grew up right when Howard Stern really started to take off. Now I was a little bit younger, but as a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, he was it, man. I just started listening to him.
12-year-olds should not be listening to Howard Stern.
Yeah, definitely not.
That's another conversation.
Could have kept a better eye on me there, but honestly, I just thought he was so funny, and I got to watch him. Man, he still is great, but he was just such an innovator in the sense that he, the Snapple brand, he built it, and he, not only took his radio show, which was awesome, but had the TV version of it, on late night, and had Snapple there, and you start to like remember these things. And so when I started my career, I went to business school and I was an analyst for a company, and I truthfully hated it. But I quickly got into working for iHeart when I was living in Chicago, bartending there, and I learned where the flow of money comes from, right, and how it works. And you got to watch these brands literally just place budgets and these radio station budgets, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, how do I ensure that my brand is not the sixth commercial in an 8-minute break, right? No one's listening to that. Like, and I started to I did well. I moved on to do their digital department in, 2007, 2008. I was, one of their top salespeople. But I knew in my mind that radio and really TV consumption and traditional media is going to go away. Everything was going on demand. At the time, TiVo and DVRs was coming in, so you really consume television a totally different way. And you could just see the trends coming that way. We're all brats in America, right? We want what we want, when we want it, how we want now, right? I mean, that's it. And it's only getting worse. So the podcasting thing started to make sense. Adam Carolla, who we've worked together now 15 years. I don't know if you guys remember Adam, but
Sure.
he did The Man Show. He did obviously Loveline with Dr. Drew for years with Westwood One. I was a big fan of his when he took over for Howard on the West Coast, and was driving around LA and working for iHeart, and they had let Adam go, and he had started a podcast, which I had started listening to, like Ricky Gervais on the BBC. He was doing some podcasts over there with Steve Merchant, and it was really great stuff. And I was like, if there's more people like me, this is a real business. And in the radio world, we call them P1s. But if you took the time back then to download something to your computer, plug your iPod, not even our iPhone, into your computer, drag it over, listen to it, you are a super P1, right? And what I recognized is if I could get brands to understand that their return on investment because of that connection, just like Howard did with Snapple, would be tremendous. And I had some relationships in the space. One of them was ProFlowers, which was out of an agency that I'm still very close with. We still do work with out of Houston, Ad Results, and we did a deal with Adam where it was a CPA, which is a cost per acquisition campaign. And basically, if you use the code Adam, you get 10% off or free shipping. I can't remember what it was, but they wouldn't pay us the spot rate at the time because they just didn't believe in it, and that would be 3 times the price of K-Rock in the morning in LA, right? So for a spot, so we got them to do a $15 trial for everyone that used Adam's code, and this was Valentine's Day of like 2009, something like that, and they had to write us a check for like $35,000-$40,000 because the conversions were so good, right? So then I knew there was a business, and I started talking to people like Bill Burr, Mark Maron, 60 Minutes, which had some news this morning. But just great brands, great comedians, great talk show hosts, and got more brands and more direct response business. The LegalZooms, the stamps.coms, those companies, and brought them all into the podcasting space and really changed that and made it a big industry. And it's been
That is,
but
it's crazy that you had the foresight. I mean, you're saying it as if it was like, very obvious at the time, but I'm sure nothing was more of a crazy concept than this podcast. I'm curious because you guys do such a great job, and it's interesting that your sort of entry into the industry was from a marketing advertising standpoint, as opposed to, you would imagine it was somebody who had a great podcast or who loves to talk, but that's not the case. I mean, it was more from the business development side that got you in. So you guys have over, let's call it 200, podcasts. Is there one category that you feel stands out more than others? I'm sure that shifts, but is it like celebrities versus athletes versus business? Like what's hot right now?
Yeah. That's a great question. There's it's amazing. I mean, you go on Apple Podcasts, you can find anything. You're into gardening and got some spring gardening going on, you can dive in, right? Like whatever you want to listen to, you can consume. The amazing thing about it is when I talk to advertisers, it doesn't matter if you listen to the Joe Rogans and you're one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and you listen, or if you listen to a very small gardening podcast, because the value of that listener is the same, no matter where, right? And it's gotten a little bit different where you have demographics and stuff like that you can fit into. But that value is of selling the audience is the key. Now that being said, we at PodcastOne, we're agnostic. We're in everything. We do sports, we do comedy, we do lifestyle, female programs, we do scripted series. But I think if you talk to my CRO, Sue McNamara, who started with Howard Stern and ran his sales team for years, she would say, give me female programming. And that is something we've really leaned into heavily. I think that there's more advertising dollars there, or I know there's more advertising dollars there. That category, we all know women typically run the household budgets and spend the money on the day-to-day stuff. So
I can attest to that. Yes.
Most of us can, most of us can. The other thing is the crime world is just, it's amazing. I mean, some of this stuff is so dark, Seth, but it's really tremendous content. I mean, we work with A&E and do I Survived and Cold Case Files, and we got in that, the History Channel and with them and doing Ancient Aliens, but it's which is super fun, but huge audiences, like huge, and they're typically for better or worse, those are typically female listeners too, which I don't know what that says about society or how you sleeping. Right. But keep one eye open. But they're plotting something. They love that content.
So, let me ask you. I'm curious because as somebody that's clearly immersed in this world, I a couple weeks ago we put out my 100th episode. That was a big milestone.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Awesome. And at the time, I looked up, like, what are the statistics? Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, how many people? Because everybody says, like, oh, I should do a podcast. I want to do a podcast. Like, how many people actually make it past episode 3 or episode 11? And the statistics were insane. Like, only 1% make it past episode 20 or 30. And so I'm curious from your standpoint, do you see that like start and then this cliff where everybody just drops off? And by the time they get to you, whether they're calling you or you're finding them and seeking them out, are they already established, or you take on new programs hoping that they succeed? How does that work?
Yeah. So your first question or at least comment is a fact. I mean, it's easy to get your friends on the first 5 podcasts and yeah, right. That's easy. Anybody can do that. But who's doing it at episode 33 and, look at you getting to 100. That's awesome. I mean, that it's hard work. Like, and that's why PodcastOne is what we are, because we realize that, right? We know doing the social media, doing the talent booking, doing the prep, doing the edits and the commercials, when we live where I live in that talent world, they're not going to do it. They have other things, and so we have to be there to make it as easy as possible for them. So that's the truth about the medium. Now, you had a question about
I was curious when there is a podcast that comes to PodcastOne, are they coming to you, or are you like, seeking them out?
Yeah, no, good question. So we do everything, right? So we'll go to established podcast, YouTube stars, talking to them about bringing their business with us, why they should. And a lot of those are the reasons I've already mentioned in the show, but you try to take a lot of that heavy lifting off of them so they can do their content and market more and grow, or do other projects with us. So that's one way. We also launch our own shows, right? So we have, people that we meet or people that are guests on our shows that, do well and we think could actually hold a conversation for 30 minutes, 45 minutes weekly, and then we launch those projects using our network of shows to give introductions to a lot of people. We also do scripted series now too, where we just actually sold our first show to Paramount.
Congratulations! Wow.
Yeah, it was cool. We did a deal with Epic out in LA, and Patrick Washburger, who's a board member of ours, from Lionsgate, and he and I worked together on this project where it's a true story out of Varnamtown, North Carolina, about Pablo Escobar's group infiltrating that town. True story. That turned it crazy, and as you can imagine, a lot of characters in a rural fishing village in North Carolina, and so we're able to sell that to Paramount, and we'll make, because we have IP on that, we'll make residuals beyond all the advertising dollars that we sold to finance it, right? And we have proof of concept. So we do everything. We look at acquisitions to other podcast networks, other content tech companies out there now too. So that's how we're growing.
I'm curious. You had mentioned seeking out YouTube stars and things like that, which not necessarily a technical question, but I'm interested. When I think of podcasts, and I don't know how old you are, probably we're roughly the same, and podcast meant audio, but that's not the case today, right? There's YouTube, and like you said, the social media and the shorts, and you got to do the whole kit and caboodle. But do you find that do all the podcasts that you guys work with also have the video component as well, or some are strictly audio?
Yeah, so the YouTube has become the number one consumption platform and discovery platform for podcasts in short order. They started getting into it about 3 years ago, and obviously being the number 2 search engine behind Google, their parent company, it's a great place for our content to be consumed. It's also cool because we can do the ads in there and integrate them in and sell more impressions and deeper integrations, just how Howard did, again with Snapple years and years ago, right? So that's been tremendous for the business. Not all of our shows are on video. We sometimes do them where we'll just have the audio and still imaging. Things like scripted series, you can't really do that, right? Because it's not a TV show, but it's very important for us to be out there because of discovery and being able to get the impressions. It's tremendous change, but when I started the business, video was expensive, and when you deal with actors, actresses, those people wanted makeup and hair and all that kind of stuff, and now they can look like you and I, right? We get up, we do the show, and sit like this is it is. So we, maybe you had hair and makeup today, Seth.
No, I did not. I wanted to impress you, but I did not do hair and makeup today.
Yeah. So there's that.
You probably have a ridiculous Rolodex, dating myself, Rolodex or connections of celebrities and athletes, and just being in the industry that you're in, you probably know a ton of people. One of the people that I guess brought us together, I go back with probably 20 years, is Rob Ellen. We've been working with him in the public markets for forever. I'm curious, the fact that PodcastOne is a publicly traded company, what surprised you about the public markets, or how do you juggle? Because that's essentially another full-time job, or another 5 full-time jobs, dealing with shareholders and capital and compliance, and how do you juggle all that, and why did you want to be a public company, for this sector?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, of course, Rob is the CEO of Live One, and good friend of mine. We've been business partners for 4 or 5 years now. When his company bought PodcastOne, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's wild. I didn't know much about it. I went to business school and I got my MBA in finance, and I just, quickly went into the business that I was in and then started running, what became Podcast One and building that, I never saw it as, being a public company. And Norm Pattis, who started Westwood One and was my business partner for years as well, who unfortunately is no longer with us, he used to tell me, he's like, "Oh, don't run a public company. It's terrible," and I
Well,
see
as a
what he
side
was
note,
saying.
people say to me, like, Seth, you've been involved with public companies for 25 years. Like, when is VStock going public? When is this going public? I'm like, guys, I know better. It's like the shoemaker's kids don't wear his own
Yeah,
shoes. But
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
totally. And it's he's well, I actually I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of really cool people, and it's different, But I understand what Norm is saying, because Norm lived a life where you're hanging out with Shaquille O'Neal and Laura Ingraham and Dennis Miller and Dana Carvey and God knows Tom Petty, right? So like, I get it. Those guys are the coolest of cool, right? And smartest of smart people. So,
And instead of that, now you're hanging out with your auditor and your stock transfer
yeah,
agent and
yeah,
your
my
compliance
analyst,
guy.
yeah, and I love those guys. Don't
I
get me
know.
wrong, so it's different, right? So, I toe the line. My favorite part of the business is still building and working with my team and integrations and working with talent, but I still do the being a public company, and that's fun too. We have a cool story, I don't mind telling it. And I think it's people don't mind listening to it either. When you go to these conferences, I hope my meeting is one of the more fun ones you're going to have, at least.
I'm sure.
You can
I'm
look at it that
sure.
way. Yeah.
It's funny because with so much technology that's being developed, and I want to be mindful of your time, so I'll try to squeeze in my last questions. But I've seen some really cheesy stuff come out with AI, like, oh, we'll take your press release, we'll convert it into AI, and we'll launch it as a podcast, and like, it sounds horrible. I mean, but that being said, AI is among us now, and so do you see any positive integrations or tools, or is that going to change the industry over the next, say, 3 to 5 years? What do you see down the pike?
Yeah, AI is tremendous. I mean, it blows me away every time I use it. I We use it for a lot of efficiencies. If you wanted to write a marketing plan for a show, or get research on a guest, if you're a producer, or if you want to find out trending topics that we should create social clips on, it's really, really amazing. I mean, it's saved hundreds and hundreds of hours of work for people to do all that. So that's been tremendous. I still read it with real questions, and you still have to think through it and be like, well, maybe that doesn't make sense, particularly for this, but you at least get that top line information, which is tremendous. It's helping with accounting efficiencies and collecting numbers from different places, and there's really some interesting tech around that. The licensing thing is really interesting. I have my own personal feelings about computers learning more and more about mannerisms and conversations and video. But look, I'm not the ethics committee of AI, and it's gonna happen without me saying yay or nay. So I think there's some tremendous financial opportunities with the amount of content, video and audio, that we have as a company. So that's really exciting. I mean, that could change everything on the revenue side of things. So
Well, is there anything that you would like to let the audience know about Podcast One? Maybe something that's not well known, or something that you guys are working on that you're able to talk about. Anything coming down over the next 6-12 months, or things that we should know that you guys are up to right now before we wrap it up?
Yeah. We launch anywhere from about 20 to 25 different programs every year. So every month it's 2 or 3 shows that we're, doing and developing with our partners. So keep an eye out on that. We've got, a new website community that we're building. We have a lot of new programs coming down the pipe, and hopefully in the next month or so, some big acquisitions that will make us even bigger in the space. We're still a little company. We're market cap right now is 125, 130 million. We did hit our 52-week high last week.
Oh,
So
congratulations!
doing
Okay,
that.
great.
Yeah, so keep an eye on that. I think we're all in a position to do really well. So
Fantastic.
keep an eye on us.
Well, for those that are listening again, they are on the Nasdaq under the ticker symbol PODC, and who knows? Maybe we'll have some conversations whether the Startup to Stock Exchange podcast can become part of the PodcastOne family. I don't know if you have any other IPO type shows, but we'll talk. And all kidding aside, thank you for the time. You're a natural at this, and we look forward to having you back in the future, and you'll give us some great updates.
All right, Seth, you take care. Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.